70375 if you want to know the GL number. It's 25,000 each year, and we've been putting it in for the last 5 years, so it totaled up to 125. So it's on my Excel spreadsheet that tells me the total.
Okay. Our volume has been turned up. Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. I will ask folks to use your microphones and speak directly into them so people can hear. And Mayor's remarks, I get to speak right into the mic. I wrote a few things down this time because it has been rather busy and some busy times to come. We held a vaccination clinic here in the hall. I participated along with some community volunteers in the Charlotte Lake Medical Center. We only had about 60 to 70 people for the 4th dose, but it worked out very well. Thank you to rural Frontenac Community Services, who made sure that their parking lot was available for us as well. And we were able to do vaccinations sitting out in the cars for those who couldn't come in. So real great cooperations. Attended the Charlotte Lake Property Owners Association here. I think it was a week ago Saturday, probably 50 or 60 people. So nice to see folks out after 2 years of not being around and not having their meetings in person. Caboose Fest on Saturday was a hit. It was so hot, but there were still lots of kids around and lots of people to come and go. And I got to meet and had spent a little time with our new MPP, John Jordan, and his wife. I think he's going to be a real asset to our community and seems to be very down to earth. I did tell him that one of the things in Central Frontenac is we don't do written speeches. We speak from the hip and the heart. So he did a fine job. Upcoming this Saturday is Kennebec Lake Association. It's also the zoning bylaw open house here in this hall, starting at 11 o'clock with the presentation at 1, I believe.
No, I think it's in between. It's from 11 till 2, and he will do the presentation part of the way through.
Okay. And there will be another open house on the 18th here as well. So for those in the public, try to get there and have a look at your property and property around you to make sure what your zoning is. Eagle Lake Association property owners meets on the 20th, Parham Fair the 19th and 20th, Beach Barbecue the 20th in the evening, Maberly Fair August the 27th. Lots of stuff coming up. Thank heavens we are through COVID at this point anyway. Don't forget closure of 38 Highway on the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. I see the detour signs are up, big flashing signs, and it's been in the paper with the detours. I did have a couple calls about it. And as soon as I explained that it would have cost us an additional $300,000 to have a bypass, the people that I spoke to said, we can certainly understand why it's closed and there's not going to be a bypass. We're going to have use detours. So people seem to understand, and let's hope it goes quickly and maybe it's finished in 2 days instead of 3. Anyone else have anything to add? Bill?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I just want to thank Tyson for accommodating for the closure of Road 38. He was able to put on the center line on the Long Lake Road, and I see the Ducharme Road's well mowed and all the rest of it, expecting increased traffic in those. It's, I think kudos go out to the Public Works Department. Thank you.
Excellent. Anything else from anyone? Okay, we'll move on then. No deferred items. Staff reports. The first is Development Services. Construction details report. Andy? We have a motion moved by Sherry Wan and seconded by Bill McDonald that council receive the construction details report as prepared by the Manager of Development Services, CBO, dated July 2022 for information. Any questions or comments for Andy? You have been busy.
Yes, I have.
More to come?
Yes, there's lots more to come.
Yes.
Trying working through as best I can.
That's all you can do, Andy. And Philip?
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, the last meeting you had indicated there was roughly 80 permits backlogged. Are we dwindling them down, or?
I didn't check before this meeting, but I know we're around the 110 mark for applications.
Wow. Wow. And your assistant is still doing some courses, so.
He's got one more exam to pass, and but I have he is out. I've sent him out a few times on his own doing inspections, and he's doing okay.
Good. It's certainly a tough time, and it's not like we can just draw another building inspector out of the pile because there aren't those in the wings waiting. It's one of those that kids in school need to go and get that particular trade if they want to work at home. Certainly, there's a need for building inspectors all over Ontario. Bill?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Andy, what would the average time like be on the backlog of permits that are still not been processed?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor McDonald, it really varies. Some applications are missing more things than others, and I try to go through them in the order that I receive them, and you know, there's often, you know, septic missing or conservation authority or other agencies that we're waiting on as well. So
yeah, so one step at a time, that's all you can do.
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried.
Yep.
Thanks, Andy, and we do appreciate the stressful time it is, and you're doing what you can do. Public Works. We have a motion moved by Bill McDonald, seconded by Tom Dewey. The council received the Public Works Activity Report as prepared by the Public Works Manager dated August the 9th, 2022 for information. Discussion. Any questions or comments for Tyson? Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tyson, I wanted to let you know that I was through the Wilkinson Road on the weekend, and it's excellent. It's nice and wide, great sight lines. The work, in my opinion, was fantastic.
Through Madam Mayor, Councillor Gowdy, thank you for that comment. Our road supervisor and area foremen have done an excellent job. We saved a little money on that job by doing a little of our own project managing, and I'd like to thank Gemble's Construction and Greenwood Paving for that.
Excellent. Brent?
Thanks. Tyson, I echo Councillor Gowdy's comments about Wilkinson. I do have a question with regard to, you had mentioned about deficiencies tracked throughout the warranty period for Henderson, Oak Flats and Arden Road projects from 2020. Public Works staff meeting and making arrangements with the contractor to ensure that deficiencies are corrected. You know, specifically to Oak Flats Road. Do you have any detail with regard to the deficiencies as they've been identified and the remedial action that's going to take place?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Cameron, there was some minor deficiencies on Oak Flats Road that it was determined that it was not the surface treat contractor. It was base issues, which were very expected through those low-lying swamp areas. That was the cost of going over that with tar and chip versus a full remediation and getting down to something solid. It just wasn't feasible. So we expected some deformations of those swamp areas, but the specific deficiencies that we brought the contractor back for on the Henderson and Arden Road, it was where the two passes of tar and chip come together, where it meets in the middle of the seam didn't come together and overlap nicely, and it separated, and it didn't look bad, but it would let water and salt in there and it would quickly deteriorate the section of road. So warranty work is something that I don't think has been done for quite some time in this township, but Steve did an excellent job organizing with our contractors and dragging them back out and making sure that they did that work.
Good. Nikki, you had a follow-up?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Tyson, is it possible when you make changes on the speed limit that you could let council know the changes on Long Lake Road and Westport Road? I had a few phone calls about them. So in future, is it a possibility you can let us know if you have to change any speed limits?
Through Madam Mayor, Councillor Gowdy, I I can circulate an email to council if that's how you want it put out.
Sure.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt because we're going to get the call. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you, Tyson. All right, finance. Michael, you're up. We have a motion moved by Sherry Wan and seconded by Tom Dewey that council approve the check distribution reports totaling $1,966,028.63 as prepared by the treasurer. Any discussion on paying the bills? Any comments from anyone? All those in favor? Carried. Next, we have apportionment report. Moved by Sherry Wan and seconded by Bill McDonald that council approve the following apportionments of assessments as recommended by impact for 2022 as applicable for the following roll numbers. And there's quite a number of them there. I won't be reading them. Any questions on any of those? All those in favor? Carried. So Michael, these apportionments, are they from this year or last year?
Most recently, most recently they're 2021s, but some are 2022. Impact's gotten a lot better over the last 15 years, and they used to go back 3 years or more sometimes.
Good, good, good. Okay. All right. Arrears in tax sale properties, moved by Bill McDonald, seconded by Tom Dewey, that council accept the arrears/tax sale properties summary update report as prepared by the treasurer for information purposes. Discussion. Brent?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Michael, with the increase in interest rates and the cooling off of the housing market, do you care to possibly maybe have some comment with regard to how you think this is going to affect? The last time we had tax sales, properties moved fairly quickly. I'm assuming that whatever we're estimating in terms of what we're going to collect is probably going to be very much impacted by the changing economic climate and the housing market. I'm just wondering if you've had a chance to maybe consider it and have some point of view on it.
For Madam Mayor to Councillor Cameron, I do think it will influence the price. It won't matter to us because we will just collect our taxes, interest, and any tax admin costs that we processed to get the file to the point where it's at. The surplus will still be paid into the courts and will still not be available to municipalities to apply for after 1 year since about 4 or 5 years ago when the rules changed. Before that, we could apply for that surplus, and we probably received $300,000 to $400,000 before, which was significant for us as a small municipality, and it's certainly a base for me. But certainly the prices that will come in probably be a little bit less than most recently. But again, I'm at this point just concerned about collecting our taxes.
Yes, unfortunately, that money sits in the courts. And we can only even ask for it after how many years? 5?
We could ask for it after 1 year before. When the rules changed, we do not ask for it now. I'd have to double check. I believe it sits there for 10 years and then I could have it wrong. The public guardian trustee can then apply for it. And
so it's lost to us.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. Bill?
To you, Madam Mayor. Michael, how do we compare to other jurisdictions of a similar size? We're really not any worse off than anywhere else. Could you give us a comment on that? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor McDonald. In terms of collections, I don't think we're worse off. Municipal Finance Officers Association has a monthly call, and sometimes that comes up about arrears collections. And most people are finding things are the same or better than what they were pre-COVID. So there's really not a whole lot of change in the collections. But I would like to make a comment, if I may, on the report that I've done it before in June. Now doing it in July, it just goes to show a little bit better that of our arrears, 96% of them are in one stage or another of tax sale, or we have a plan with the owners. So I think we're doing an excellent job in terms of collecting and staying on top of it. I believe when I started, came back 11 years ago now, it was at about 18, 19%. And I think we were at 10 or 11% of what we bill.
And it's excellent to try and negotiate with people as best we can. People don't let their taxes go if they have money.
Exactly. And it's not our property. I don't want to do that. It's part of my job, but we'll absolutely bend over backwards to work with people.
Good. And that's the way we should do it. Okay. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Carried. We like to have a treasure with a heart. All right, Mountain Grove Cemetery Report, moved by Tom Dewey, seconded by Bill McDonald. The council received the report on the Memorial Day service at the Mountain Grove Cemetery as submitted by Judy and David Gray to the treasurer, Michael McGovern, for information. Discussion? It's great that they do that and hand the money over to the township. What, it was $800 or something net?
Yeah, I was going to say 640, 847.
There you go. I was closer than you.
Need my bifocals.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Right, budget to actual variance report. Moved by Bill McDonald, seconded by Sherry Wan, that council accept the revenue and expenditure budget to actual variance report as prepared by the treasurer for the period ending June 30th, 2022 for information. Questions or comments for Michael? Brent?
Just a quick question. I was looking at the revenue projections and specifically building, and I'm not sure, maybe I'm not reading it properly, but we're showing that we're on target, but we're down from last year. But if we're looking at the construction report, we're up in terms of permit fees and such. So maybe I'm missing something, because to my mind, that's the same number. So I'm just wondering if I'm not taking into account certain factors, because it looks high in one report and low in another. Maybe you could.
So through Madam Mayor to Councillor Cameron, I do have a report in here, and obviously I'm flipping through trying to find it, be respectful and look at you at the same time. But there's about, I think it was $35,000 of permits that need to be processed. Once they're to that point, so Andy has the application, so you're seeing the number before it's reflected on the financial statements later. So there is 30 or so or $35,000. I think that was to come in, and that would bring in, but there's always going to be that timing issue.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Oh, Michael, go ahead.
Just overall, I think we're doing okay. My concerns at this point would not be a surprise to council. Fuel, heating, and capital project overages. So just to give council a heads up on that, managers are doing their best to compensate in other areas, but it's a concern.
And would it be safe to say the capital project overages would be due to fuel prices?
That I'm saying a combination of.
Yeah.
But yeah, the overages, at least in fuel, correlates to the prices that we see at the pump.
Yeah. They are coming down, but when they go back up, we think it's good now if it's $1.60 instead of $1.30. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, no more questions or comments. All those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried.
Thank you, Council.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, next we're talking about the Oso Road. I'm going to ask Cindy to come up first. Cindy's going to speak first, then we're going to have Julie and George, if you'd like to speak as well. I will tell you though that we're going to keep you to 8 to 10 minutes at the most. Okay. All right. You too, Cindy, you got 8 to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the first report is the portion that's dealing with just the section north of the K&P through the concession lot. And that's what we received legal advice on in closed session at the last meeting. And it's relating to this, rather than closing the road permanently, that we consider a section 35 bylaw to restrict the common law access. And the report outlines the vehicle traffic would be prohibited, but ATV, walking, pedestrian, horses, that type of thing would be allowed. And then the second part of that would be allowing the considering the bylaw for the easements, once we have a legal description to describe easements in favor of the two property owners, to allow them to have vehicle access just over the section that they need to get to their properties. I think Mr. Comboy is here and will speak to it as well. He did contact me by phone, I think yesterday, with concerns about whether or not tractors would be captured within the Section 35 bylaw. Currently, right now, it's just dealing with ATV. So we could, if council wanted, consider to allow tractors within that allowable type of vehicle within the Section 35 bylaw. We could certainly add that in if that's what council wishes. So I think that's all, unless there's any question, that's all I had that I wanted to mention about that first report.
Okay, questions for Cindy or comments? Okay, seeing none. Does anyone have a problem adding tractors? I certainly don't. Okay. All right. Okay, Julie, you would like to speak to us. Come on up and take the mic beside Cindy there.
First of all, thank you for letting me speak.
Okay.
My apologies at the June 14th meeting because I was so stressed out. I didn't really understand part of the proposal and thought you were putting a road beside my house.
Okay.
Anyway, so I'm just going to highlight a couple of things because as I said to you, Madam Mayor, that I thought there was going to be another public meeting about this, and I felt like I had so much to say at the June 14th meeting that I didn't say everything I had to say, and I'm probably not even going to say everything I have to say now. But anyways, I'm just going to be very brief here. These are just additional concerns and information. I didn't say this at the time, but it seems to me that this whole proposal does not conform to the township's official plan regarding heritage roads, that you do not encourage development on heritage roads. And these two new properties originally were a single parcel, probably a year or less than a year ago, or maybe a little more than a year ago. It was a single property, a hunt camp, that was severed into two properties. Now there's two properties there and both property owners are looking to develop there. So to me, it seems like it goes against the official plan. As far as the non-existent road portion of the old Oso Road on my property that hasn't existed for 50 plus years or probably more, it is officially called a forced road. Sorry. Which is an old colonization road that was put through private property way back when. It could be as long ago as 1880, I've been told. The township, as far as I'm aware, and my lawyer told me this, that no title or deed, the township can show no title or deed to it, and very likely no fee was ever paid to any of the former landowners of my property for it. And as you all know, and I've reiterated, the road has not existed physically on my property for 50 years. Here's some other new information that I found out. As I told you, a portion of my septic system runs under this non-existent road on my property. And when I looked at the measurements of the old road, part of my septic goes onto my private property as well. The whole thing extends under what you are calling your road, but also further onto my private property. Also, I didn't know this at the time at the June meeting, but I have government signed documentation and diagrams showing that the original septic system was approved to be installed in the location where it's currently located. That is a huge thing to me. Whereas liability has been put upon me and I feel like it's my responsibility, the government approved the location of that septic system originally to go in where it was, which is under that road.
I just want to add, Julie, we have houses that are built on road allowances as well. And they got building permits for it because nobody knew where the road allowance was. Just to show you that that does happen all over the place. So anyway, go on.
Okay, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. I crossed a lot out. off to be brief. Regarding the request for Hydro One installation on this section of Old Road on my property, to me, it seems premature. As far as I'm aware, the 2 lots behind me that are looking to be rezoned are currently zoned as rural. The original property behind there was a hunt camp that nobody ever went to. The township's current zoning bylaw states on page 172, item 4.6, that a camp shall not be serviced with hydro, with electricity. So to me, it seems that this proposal coming forward at this meeting of how to put hydro onto my property to service the properties behind me seems premature, because their zoning, as far as I'm aware, has not changed from rural to LSR. And right now it is a hunt camp, and this is what it says in your current zoning bylaw. They don't get service. They are not to be serviced with electricity. As far as the easement granting along the K&P trail, I bought my property not beside a road, beside a trail. The trail is not a road, in my opinion. I know it's a road in other locations in the township, in Charbet Lake. It has to be a road there. But to me, turning it into a road in this wilderness area is very concerning. I just want to say, I'm almost done here.
Okay.
I want you to know that the particular section of easement that is being granted to the property owners is bordered by wetlands, but there's streams on both sides of it, and there's a pond on one side of it. And the fact to me that the owners are responsible for the maintenance of this section of trail, I just find that astounding. But I'm just going to say 2 more things. Also, their heirs become responsible for maintaining the trail at that portion. I was also concerned at the original proposal. I wonder if this does not concern the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority because of the streams and wetland located on that easement, and they were not contacted about this proposal. I'm concerned that emergency services with the township did not comment on this proposal regarding the easement, because somebody told me they don't even think emergency vehicles will be able to get in along that easement to these properties. And one last thing. The Trail Association was not made aware of this easement granting. To me, it seems if you guys are talking about what kind of vehicles go on the Oso Road, imagine the kind of vehicles that are going to be having to access this easement to build 2 new homes. Construction vehicles, dump trucks, septic pumping trucks, well drilling rigs. To me, the concern about the Oso Road traffic, where there is no concern about the easement traffic with what is happening here, I find astounding. I'm finished. Thank you for letting me speak. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure Cindy's gonna speak more about the lawyer or whatever. Yeah, so.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. And thank you for keeping to your time.
And I just wonder also if I just might add one thing.
Now you're pushing it.
Am I allowed to offer, if anyone wants questions, to contact me about it further? Or is that inappropriate? I don't even know what
I think if council has questions, they'll get the answers.
Yeah, because I can hand out my email and my phone number if anyone has questions.
They would go through the office.
Oh, they would go through the office? Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. George, would you like to comment as well? We did get your tractor in there. Okay. You're welcome. Push that button.
Yes, I was asking Cindy about the tractor, and I mentioned tractor, but I was thinking about it last night, and I thought, well, maybe we should generalize that term to slow-moving vehicles. That would be appropriate.
What are you thinking of beyond a tractor in that slow moving vehicle?
Well, could possibly be a skidder.
Yeah, I thought of a skidder. I thought of a trailer hauling out wood.
Anything that's, you know, it's a farm use vehicle type thing.
Sherry?
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, could we broaden it by saying farm equipment?
Farm equipment? Well, if you farm wood, it would be.
Vehicles a very acceptable term, but it's up to you.
I think we'd have to check and see what the terminology is in the act, eh? Because we refer to the act. It does talk about farm equipment or farm.
All that stuff, and being exempt.
Go ahead, Brent.
Do we have to specify the type of equipment or the use? Because we could say equipment used for agricultural purposes, which is that too broad a category? Or is that something that we could do? Because that gets us away from having to itemize 30 different types of farm equipment, which ends up creating a bylaw which is longer by half. But I don't know if that's something that would be allowed.
Why don't we take that under consideration and see what terminology we can use? I think council has spoken that they are in favor of allowing tractors and agricultural equipment. Just how we would determine it in the bylaw, or how we would make it specific in the bylaw that it's covered.
Okay.
So we'll certainly see if we can get the right wording to make that fit.
Your Worship, I think Highway Traffic
Go ahead,
Act
Tom.
defines, I think the Highway Traffic Act defines a farm vehicle very well. But we checked the Highway Traffic Act. They have what vehicles are allowed, slow moving vehicles on provincial highways.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Dewey's point, though, the way the bylaw is constructed, though, is we're not treating that road as a highway. So it's not, so whatever's in the Highway Traffic Act wouldn't apply to this section because we're accepting it out. We're not treating it as a highway. So,
but it's a limited. Okay, well, I leave it with this. We're not going to pass the bylaw tonight.
Okay.
But we will wordsmith it so that we get it, that it's appropriate for the use.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay.
And the other thing I was wanting to do, I just wanted to get some clarification. And on June 14th, we talked about closing the road. That was deferred. And it was talking about the whole road from KMP to the northern edge of this property. It seems to me that this one is talking about only from the KMP trail to the wetlands. Is that correct?
To lot 20, Cindy, is it?
So the section 35 bylaw is intended to go north from the KMP right to through the wetland to the northwest corner of lot 20. So where so it's the whole thing. The easements, the corresponding easements would only go up to the wetland, so that the two property owners would have easements to their properties, but only up to the wetland.
Okay. So I guess what I'm wondering about, there's this paragraph in one of the, I guess it was the
bylaw?
One of the bylaws. And it talked about putting on gates and having keys for these two people. And it was because of health and safety. Well, if there's health and safety issues, why would they get a key? And if so, why are they being protected and the rest of us aren't? Or vice versa. So I found that a little troubling. I kind of felt that was sort of a back way of almost closing that road to the general public.
Cindy, do you want to speak to that? What was meant by that?
Sure. Yeah, that I think the section that he's referring to is in the easement bylaw, and it contemplates if there's a health and safety issue that there is the ability for the township to gate it or put other sort of bollards or any sort of kind of, I don't want to say traffic calming devices, but ways to prevent vehicle traffic from moving forward past the easement lands. It would probably, and it's kind of trying to keep our options open, because 5-10 years down the road, situations may change. We may need to permanently close that road allowance for whatever reason, or we may want to establish it as a trail and need to sort of limit what type of vehicles can cross through which section. So it's just to provide, it was intended to provide some flexibility down the road, since that easement will be permanently created on title.
Does it need to be in there?
Doesn't need to be.
Okay. So if you do an easement and you want to do bollards or gates or some point in the future, can the easement be changed?
If you have the consent of the landowners,
okay,
they would have to agree to it.
And the reason for that, for the gate or the bollards, would be because people are accessing this road that don't have any easement.
Potentially, or anyone who is perhaps trespassing, and we feel that they're trying to cross the wetlands and it's not safe, and we want to try to restrict who can access it. In excess of caution, I always kind of defer to wanting to have that ability if we need to. Who knows what will happen with the wetland down the road.
So we have that ability, even if it's not in the easement language now.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, I'm just wondering if we take it out now, and if down the road, say 5 years from now, it becomes a racetrack and we need to stop people from being on it, we can then invoke the gating procedures.
We'd have to amend the existing easement and get their permission to put gates up, because typically, unless it's specified in the easement agreement, there wouldn't necessarily be an expectation that there'd be allowed to be gates.
I think the big thing to think about is we don't want this to be known as a road. We want to be able to access it, a limit on access. I think the word that's used is to not have common access. So people can use it that are designated to use it, but it's not going to be a maintained road that is going to be a highway.
Right. I appreciate that. I'm just saying that if you are going to close it, then it should be another public meeting.
Yeah, well, and that's not the case. We're not closing it. Pardon?
And that isn't the case with this wording.
That wording can come out if it's going to cause a problem right now, and we'll meet that if we have to down the road.
And I think in future, if we do decide that we need to gate it and close it permanently, then it would come back to a public meeting at that point. We've already got the wording in the easement bylaw to allow us to put those gates up, so it prevents us from having to go back to those property owners to make that request. So it just saves a step down the pipe.
Well, what do we want to do? Do we want to leave it in, or do you want to take it out and let the next group of council sitting around this table in 10 years deal with it? Victor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It would seem to me like my understanding of the putting in the gates would be if people are accessing it excessively or people we don't want. If that's happening, then the landowners are going to be of the same opinion, right? They're not going to want these people accessing. So they would probably be amenable to changing the easement agreement to put the gates in later. So I think we can drop it now. And then if it does become a problem, then both the township and the landowners are probably going to be of the similar opinion, and we can amend the easement agreement at that point.
That's what I would think. Sherry?
I'm just wondering if George would be in agreement to that, because I think we all are trying to be compassionate to you, Ms. Drucker. I'm sure this was very stressful for you, and
I'm satisfied with that. Okay. I just didn't like it in there the way it was. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the agreement around the table I'm seeing is we're going to take that wording out now, but we will reserve that for future. If it's an issue, then we'll have to go back and speak to those folks that have the easement. And I think they will also want it to be dealt with at that point.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Now I've got a motion to read, even though we've been discussing it. Oh, Cindy, go ahead.
Sorry, before I just wanted to clarify something that Julie had commented on about the lots being severed. they were in one ownership, but they always were two separate parcels because there was that road parcel that separated them. So there was no planning, there was no consent application or any sort of consent process to split those lots off. They were able to sell them to two separate parties because the road intersected. So I just wanted to clarify because it was not a severance situation.
Right. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to read this motion. This is moved by Tom Dewey, seconded by Sherry Wan. Whereas an application to close a portion of the unmaintained section of Oso Road has been brought forward to council to facilitate alternative access arrangements for two properties adjacent to that road. And whereas some members of the public expressed some concern and opposition to the permanent closure of this section of the unmaintained road. Now, therefore, it be it resolved that council proceed with a section 35 bylaw to restrict the common law right of passage on the section of road within lot 1920 concession 3 north of the K&P trail to prohibit vehicular access on the road, said bylaw to be considered later in the meeting. And further, that staff bring back the easement bylaw once the final reference plan is deposited, said bylaw to authorize the CAO clerk and mayor to enter into easement agreements in favor of the owners of 36-229-0087 and 36-229-0088 for the portion of the former road from and including the K&P trail to the south boundary of the wetland for vehicular access to said properties, said easements to be registered at the property owner's expense. Now, can the bylaw come forth at this meeting with our adjustments?
I think I would suggest that we defer the bylaw to next meeting to allow us time to tweak the wording.
Okay, so we can leave this motion as is and defer the bylaw when we get there.
And you could also put that in there where you're just going to be considering it, see, later in the meeting. So council consider that they're not going to pass it.
All right. Okay. All right. Any more questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? Sorry.
How do we do this procedurally to make this? So we're basically deferring this, correct?
No, the bylaw is said to be considered later in the meeting. Just when the bylaw comes up, we're going to defer it to get the wording changed.
Good. Okay.
Got it? Thank you. You're welcome. All right. Now, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Whew, that was a tough one. Okay. Here's another tough one. Okay, this is request for hydro installation on part of the old Oso Road between Drucker property. Moved by Sherry Wan, seconded by Tom Dewey. Whereas Hydro One has received a request from a landowner looking for hydro service on property north of the K&P and has approached the township for plans to install a hydro pole on the section of Oso Road between the K&P Trail and Bell Line Road. And whereas the property owner who owns parcels on both sides of the road allowance has encroaching elements located within the road allowance and has previously expressed concern about the possibility of a hydro easement on these lands. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council review the options put forth in this report and direct staff to proceed with options 1, 2, or 3. And the other option is to defer its decision until the next council meeting pending a decision from Ms. Drucker whether she will proceed with the closure transfer of the road allowance. Victor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It seems to me that Julie has brought up a couple of points that probably should be considered. And I would prefer the deferral. That's my opinion.
Okay. This was moved by Sherry and seconded by Tom. Are you good with deferral as an option for now? Okay. Cindy, do you want to speak to this?
Sorry, yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. Just wanted to confirm with council that we did receive a letter from Ms. Drucker's lawyer this morning. So we do have a letter from him outlining some positions. Just a quick summary of his letter. He is confirming that she does want to acquire the road allowance. She does want to proceed with that. He states that he feels that it's inappropriate to proceed with the hydro options outlined in options 1 and 2. for many of the same reasons that Julie outlined. A forced road, no paper title, the fact that the road has been abandoned. The road allowance is critical to her use and enjoyment of the property, and that the township is complicit with respect to the allowing the shed and the septic system to remain on the road allowance. Also, he stated that he felt that it wouldn't be appropriate to approve an easement as it is an interest in land, and it should have a public meeting. We did have the public meeting in June, but he's suggesting a second public meeting. And then again, as Julie pointed out, the point about the lands needing to be rezoned. We did send that letter to our lawyer, and he has commented on it. So we do want to get back to Mr. Halpenny and with our response on that. So again, we're sort of suggesting the month deferral to allow them some time to work that out.
Okay. And our next meeting is
September
the
second Tuesday. Is that the 13th?
Do we know the 13th?
13th.
Okay. So if it's deferred, it'll be deferred until then.
Yes, until September 13th.
Okay. So we're good to do that. So we'll click defer. And let's add to September 13th, 2022. Okay, so are we good with this? All those in favor? Motion's carried. So Julie, by next council meeting, you need to have a decision for us, okay? So we can move forward. Our lawyer, well, will our lawyer be in touch with Julie's lawyer? Is that how it's going to work, or?
True.
Okay, so we'll be responding to your lawyer this week or next week, right? Okay, all right. Do you want to let Bill know he can come back? All right. He's having a little nap over there, is he? All right.
There's no cookies left.
So we have a motion moved by Sherry Wine, seconded by Bill McDonald, that council received the RVCA May 26, 22 board meeting minutes for information. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Right. A motion moved by Victor Hayes and seconded by Brent Cameron that council received the MVCA May 18th board meeting minutes and July the 20th, 2022 board summary report for information. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Brent Cameron, seconded by Victor Hayes, that council received the EOTA minutes from its May 12th, 2022 board meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Victor Hayes, seconded by Brent Cameron, that council received the District 4 Recreation Committee minutes dated June the 7th, 2022. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. By Nikki Gowdy and seconded by Victor Hayes, that council received District 1 Recreation Committee minutes dated June the 20th, 2022 for information. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Can you tell me why we don't put these minutes all in one motion?
Because they're all separate.
Because they're all separate.
Separate committees. They're all separate committees.
All right, just a question. Moved by Victor Hayes and seconded by Nikki Gowdy. That council received the Central Frontenac Pickleball Committee minutes dated July 4th and July 11th, 2022 for information. And further, that the terms of reference be amended and approved as attached. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Right. Moved by Nikki Gowdy, seconded by Victor Hayes, that council receive the Central Frontenac Washroom Facilities Committee minutes dated July the 28th, 2022 for information, and further that council approve the terms of reference as attached. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. All right. Sally McIntyre is here and is going to talk to us on behalf of Quinte Conservation Authority / Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority.
I changed it first. She's speaking, not Brad, so it's her Conservation Authority first.
Okay. Welcome, Sally. Push that button on the right. There we go.
Excellent. Are we able to bring up my presentation? Oh, wonderful.
Would you like a copy here?
I'm fine.
Okay. And Sally, you're going to need to speak right into the microphone so that people can hear the back.
Okay. How's that?
That's good.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you for having me here today. And lovely to see you, Cindy. Cindy is your member on our board, and it's lovely to see you. So I'm here today on behalf of both Quinte and Mississippi Valley because, as you may be aware, our regulations changed in the past year. And so the province has directed us to engage with all our municipalities to enter into a variety of contractual agreements under the new regulations. So the purpose of me being here today is to explain the process and the nature of those contracts, and then get some direction from council on how we're going to move forward. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So in the new regulation, they talk in terms of category 1, 2, and 3 services. And so what we need to talk about today is the category 2 and 3. Category 1 are mandatory. All municipalities have to support them in some shape or form through the municipal levy. But category 2 are bilateral agreements where you've asked us to do something. And category 3 are something more broad in nature that aren't a municipal responsibility, but that you'd like us to do. So what we need to do is to try to get direction from council, because we're trying to coordinate this amongst 11 municipalities. And so we need a fair amount of runway to make that happen. And so we're looking for council direction so that over the next period of months, ourselves and Kathy and Quinte and others can engage in these contracts and develop draft memorandum of understanding and draft cost apportionment agreements, that's the language in the legislation, to bring forward to the new council. So you're giving us direction, but it'll be the new council that will actually sign on the dotted line and approve them. So if you go to the next slide, please. So I'm just going to go very quickly through first principles, just so you have some background on this. So the Conservation Authorities Act speaks right in the purpose of the act about programs and services. And what the legislation did was then to start to scope that. So if you go to the next slide, it takes a very broad mandate about, programs and services related to natural resources. And it starts to say, well, actually, you're not doing everything having to do with natural resources. You're doing these things. And for the benefit of those in the audience, I'll just read some of them out to you. So research, study, and investigate the watershed, erect structures and create reservoirs, control the flow of surface water, use land for parks or other recreational purposes, plant and produce trees, and there's a host of other things. So you can see that they start to scope it down to say, you're not doing everything related to resources management, here's what you're supposed to do. So then if you go to the next slide, the new piece of legislation did is it started to categorize them for financial management purposes, because there was concern among some municipalities that they felt that that conservation authorities were going beyond their legislative mandate. And so what they did in response to some of the concerns expressed was to say, okay, well, we're going to set in legislation what CAs have to do, what a municipality can ask them to do, and then what a variety of municipalities might collaborate around because they think they're the right thing to do and they want to do them. So I'm going to take you through some examples so you have a sense of what I'm talking about, category 1, 2, and 3. So if you could go to the next slide. Oh, and just one little nuance here. I'm going to be talking about MOUs with respect to bilateral agreements for category 2 type services. And then for category 3, they're cost apportionment. And the reason for that is because generally these category 2 services, they are bilateral. It's between a municipality and a CA. So for instance, some municipalities are contracting to conservation authorities for the septic approvals. And that is a bilateral agreement. It has nothing to do with any of the other municipalities. Whereas a category 3 service might be doing all the lake monitoring that we do and engaging with lake associations. And so we develop a comprehensive lake monitoring program that we apply across the watershed. So in that instance, it's all the municipalities that are collaborating around development of the lake monitoring program. Okay. So if you go to the next one, actually, if you could continue on, because I think I just explained that. So as I mentioned, we're right here, June, July, August. I've been doing these presentations because in the lead up to the election, I'm trying to get some sense from the councils what you're on for right now, so that we can have these, ongoing discussions with staff, and then be in a position early in 2023 to bring it back to the new councils. Because if there's any challenges, we need to work it all out in the early part of 2023 so that we can draft the 2024 budget to reflect all these different agreements that we have put in place. So that's why I'm sitting in front of you now, even though the deadline is until January 1, 2024, there's a lot of paperwork to take care of between now and then, and to get the budgets done in a timely manner. Okay, so to the next slide. So this one summarizes for you at a very high level how monies are expended by Quinte and Mississippi today. So one of the first steps we had to do in this whole process was to provide you with a summary of our 5-year annual average costs, how we've been spending money over the past 5 years. And so this summarizes it. So you can see there's a bit of difference between Quinte and Mississippi Valley. Because we own and operate a lot of dams and reservoirs, we have a fair amount on the watershed management as well as the flood and erosion control, as does Quinte, but there's a slight difference in where and how those monies are spent. But overall, we're both over 60–70% is simply on managing flows in the watershed and water resource management. And then we have a fair number of conservation areas, and that's coming in at the 16%. And then the corporate services, and that includes legal, IT, all of those things that every organization needs, is coming in around 20% for both. So next slide, please. So hard to see there, and I hope you have hard copies in front of you that are perhaps more legible. Okay, good. So this is the document that all conservation authorities were required to provide to all their member municipalities by the end of February of this year. So you would have received this and seen this probably in your March meeting. And I color-coded it to hopefully make it easier for you. Everything that's green is category 1, and we don't even need to discuss it here today because it's mandatory. All CAs have to deliver those programs and services, and all municipalities have to support them through the municipal levy. So what I'm really talking to you about here today are what's in orange and in blue. So the orange items are those bilateral category 2 things. So you'll see on the spreadsheet, it says, for instance, the septic services or municipal county advisory services. So for instance, in the county of Lanark, we deliver planning advisory services. I believe here in the Frontenac, you defer to the county for some of that planning advisory support. I can't speak for Central Front. Yeah, that's the case here, right? So, but in Lanark, we support them in that respect. So that's what you're seeing there. And I believe for septic program, you have, are you doing it in-house or are you contracted to someone else? Yeah, through South Frontenac. Yeah, I knew it wasn't us. So, but there are several municipalities that have signed on for that. So that's what that orange is related to. Now that one blue item there is our monitoring program. So we do some baseline monitoring that we have to do for the province because they have a program, a water quality program that does very rudimentary sampling across a subset of the watershed. This monitoring program is that incremental cost that allows us to do all the major lakes in the watershed on a rotating basis, so that when lake associations come to us or real estate agents come to us, we can talk to them about the water quality in those particular lakes, if there's any trending that we're seeing, and then also to engage with the municipalities about any issues we might see and how you might want to address them. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So you'll see on this one, there's a lot more blue, and that's because when it relates to conservation areas, the provinces divided it into 2 different types of programs and services. If it's passive recreational, so trails, parking lots, outhouses, that sort of thing, then it's category 1. It all falls under the municipal levy. But if it's like a education program or a stewardship program that you might operate out of a conservation area, or you're engaging out in the community on, or if it's some sort of museum or other sort of activity that you're doing at a conservation area, then it's category 3. So at Mississippi Valley, we have heritage buildings, one that's used and rented out for weddings and Boy Scouts and that sort of thing. So if you look at your table, you'll see there's some cost recovery under, self-generated fees. So some of the monies is coming from that. Some of them, because there's a museum that we operate for 4 months of the year, some of that's subsidized by the province. And then we also have the outdoor education programs and the like. So those are category 3s, and that's probably the crux of really what we need to engage with you on today, is when you look on balance at these, whether you want to continue to support these programs and services. So I'm going to go through them very quickly then, because I know time is of the essence. So if you want to go to the next slide. So for us, what those programs and services amount to in terms of your municipal levy, your total levy right now in 2022 was just under $15,000. So that would be for all category 1, 2, and 3 services. Okay, so that's what you paid this year to the CA. If you go to the next slide, to Quinte Conservation, you paid just under $62,000. And if you go to the next slide, skip that one, please. I must tell you the punchline later on in the program. Sorry, I'll get there in a moment. So I'll just tell you a bit more about these programs if you could go. So when it comes to the stewardship program, earlier this year, our board approved a stewardship plan, and we broke the watershed down into 3 areas: the upper watershed, the middle watershed, and the lower watershed, because the geography and nature of the watershed changes significantly as you move downstream. So the upper watershed includes Central Frontenac and North Frontenac, as well as Addington Highlands and Greater Madawaska. They're all highlands, heavily forested, lots of wetlands, lots of lakes and creeks and rivers. So the stewardship plan lists out a whole host of things that we would like to do or are currently doing under the stewardship plan. And that includes enhanced forest management, working with people on watershed health, that's largely through the lake associations, and preventing and reducing introduction of invasive species, again, working through lake associations. A lot of educational kind of outreach type work that we do in this part of the watershed. If you go to the next slide. In terms of the system monitoring, this map shows you where we have monitoring sites across the watershed, including in Central Frontenac. So you can see we have a lot around Charbot Lake area, and then in some of the tributaries to the Mississippi. So the programs, our monitoring program supports continuation of monitoring at those sites. If you go to the next slide. As I mentioned, these are photos from the Milliken Tail site, which is just outside of Carlton Place in the watershed. And so it houses an education center where we run, educational programming to school groups, as well as summer camp programming on educational, outdoor education related to natural systems and environment. And lots of people rent the facilities for weddings and special events and that sort of thing. So all sum total, I think this is where we get to, oh, and then this is the summary of the fact sheet put together by Quinte Conservation. And unfortunately, I don't think Tammy was able to join us at this time. But if you have any questions about the Category 3 programs and services that Quinte offers, then you can follow up with them. They're obviously much more familiar with them. So the next slide. So the Category 3 to the entirety of MVCA cost $126,000. Now, as you know, the municipal levies are divvied up on a proportionate basis, and therefore Central Frontenac's apportionment is less than 1% of that. And so the math comes out to about $550. So for $550 a year, that allows continuation of the Category 3 programs and services. Now that's the operating costs, but that would allow for continuation of the monitoring, stewardship, and those non-passive recreational activities at the conservation areas. So that's kind of implication for MVCA. At Quinte Conservation, they have been able to secure a lot more grants, or they may have higher fees, I'm not sure, but there's no cost implication at this time that they're envisioning for continuation of Category 3 to Central Frontenac. You could go to the next slide, please. So as I mentioned off the top, what I'm really trying to get a sense of here today is whether you're supportive of continuing the stewardship, the monitoring, and those non-passive recreational activities, recognizing that the likely cost implication going forward is going to be in the order of $2022 plus capital, but we haven't worked that out yet, but we need to, this is one of the things we need to sort of get a sense from the townships about where we're going to go on this. So I'll stop talking.
Okay, excellent. Questions or comments for Sally? Brent, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. Would I be right in assuming that whatever the result of this review is, that both of the particular conservation authorities are going to harmonize whatever would fall within Category 2 and Category 3 services? I have a follow-up question to that, but I take it that since you're partnering in this process, that whatever falls within the category of Category 2, whether it's Quinte or Mississippi Valley, we can expect the same type of products and services under that?
No. And I'll explain why. We run very different facilities, and it's up to you what you enter into an agreement with us on Category 2. So it's up to you with respect to Category 2. The ball's in your court. So we're fully prepared to deliver identical programs between our two CAs when it comes to Category 2. But I think that's a non-issue here. I don't think actually we engage in any Category 2 with you. It's really with respect to Category 3. And as I just described to you, our conservation areas are going to be different, delivering different programming potentially, because they're trying to tailor to meet to local demand. So there may be some nuances and difference. If I could reassure you though, CAs don't have a lot of spare cash on hand. We share resources wherever possible. Right now, it's our VCA, Rideau Valley, that's delivering our summer camp program. We've just contracted to them carte blanche, and you go on our website to sign up and it takes you to their website because they're managing the whole enchilada. Same with our septic program. You come to our website because you happen to reside in our watershed. It's taking you to their website. We really try to share resources and harmonize for efficiency wherever possible.
Maybe what I'll do is I'll just, and I might not be reading this properly, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. So in your one slide, you include a definition of Category 2 to be septic approvals, inspections, and then also support with planning reviews.
Yeah.
And all of us are on Committee of Adjustment. And every time a report comes in, we're told Quinte Conservation says they're okay with this, or Mississippi Valley says they're okay with this. But by my reading of that, that's a category 2 thing. So that would have an impact. And to complicate things, we have Rideau Valley as well. So we're impacted by 3 different conservation authorities. And if that type of information that comes for planning is considered category 2, my concern is that we're running 3 very different systems in terms of interpreting these things at a time when we're seeing a real bumper crop in the number of planning applications and the numbers of calls that are going to go in. I have a bit of concern about that. So maybe by explaining what I'm looking at, maybe you could speak to that and either put me at ease or.
Okay, so yeah, I'm actually going to ask you to go to one of the slides I skipped. So if you want to back up, I'll tell you when to stop. There, if you go back, yeah, okay. So I skipped this slide because what it speaks to is what CAs have to do under either delegated authority from the province or our own legislation, and the category 2 service that we provide in the County of Lanark, but not in the Frontenacs. So under our own legislation, we have to comment on planning applications as it pertains to the provincial policy statement, the PPS, and specifically sections 31 having to do with natural resources and natural hazards. So in any situation, the site, we're trying to apply that provincial policy statement to whatever application we're looking at. The reason why the County of Lanark or County of Frontenac is supporting you in planning applications is because municipalities have a legislative responsibility to also consider sections 2.1, 2.2, and the other 2.2 under the provincial policy statement. And because smaller municipalities often don't have the in-house expertise to comment effectively on those, they contract to the counties to deliver that service. And in turn, the County of Lanark has contracted to the local CAs to do that. So where I'm going with this is that when you're seeing us respond to planning applications, it has nothing to do with category 2 because we don't deliver that service here. We are simply. Sorry. Oh, this is a generic. Yeah, this is a generic PowerPoint. In some municipalities it does apply, in this municipality it doesn't.
Okay, so that clear as mud.
I'm sorry.
Bill, did you have a question or comment?
I have a comment in regard to, through you, Madam Mayor, Sally, the services that all conservation authorities supply upon request from to the municipalities in regard to planning issues. We wouldn't have the expertise on staff in which to be able to react to those kinds of applications come in. So I'm in favor of the conservation authorities continuing to provide the information that we need under the Planning Act and that sort of thing. So I support, and I actually support the category 3 because it's only $500 a year, but I'm in favor of the conservation authorities continuing to provide services to the municipalities. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's not a question.
Okay. Victor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Perhaps I can just clarify for Brent. There's 2 tiers of comments. Tier 1 is the category 1, and that is required by legislation. Mississippi Valley, Rideau Valley, they all have to do it. And how they comment, it's natural hazards. And their comments are very set specifically to these natural hazards. Category 2 are, shall we say, less of a requirement. So let's say somebody well, and this might apply to the ice rink here in Charlotte Lake. Did we do a hydrogeology study for that, for the ice rink? Okay. Let's say, for example, somebody wants to build a warehouse and it's perhaps close to a wetland. They may be required to do a hydrogeology study. The conservation authorities are not required to comment on that, but the planning authority, whoever it is, may contract the conservation authorities to do that study. In which case, and it's a category 2, then the municipality or the planning authority pays for that study. It doesn't come out of the municipal levy. Does that?
But in the issues, I mean, yes, we pay for it, but is it
yeah.
No.
If there's a difference in this delivery between the respective conservation authorities, and maybe a great assumption of the idea that the township is going to be a different interpretation.
I think what I understand is unless we opt out of the two categories 2 and 3, nothing will change as to what's being delivered right now.
Correct.
Okay. So on that note, I have a motion. And the motion is moved by Victor Hayes and seconded by Nikki Gowdy. The council received the presentation from Sally McIntyre on behalf of the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority and Quinte Conservation Authority for information, and that council support continued delivery of category 2 and 3 programs by MVCA and QC. And further, that council direct the CAO and treasurer to work with MVCA and QC staff on memorandum of understandings and cost apportionment agreements to be presented to council in early 2023. Any more discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, now we are at Bob Teal and Rick Goodfellow. Come on up to the mics. And if you push the button on your right hand, we'll be able to hear you. Welcome. Who wants to go first? Push that button on the right, Bob. There we go.
I think everybody here knows me. I'm Bob Teal. I'm the chairperson of the District 4 Recreation Committee. I write everything down because I don't remember much anymore.
Okay, just speak right into the mic, Bob, so they can hear you at the back.
I'd like to direct this to council only and get their response, please. As well as I would like to note, this is nothing against any other districts. The reason I'm here, I would like council to reconsider the motion for the new facility at the Charlotte Lake Ball Field. The reasons being that it was, I was told at a meeting on April 28th that there is no recreation funds this year, and that tough decisions had to be made at budget time. If this is so, how can you have money to build a new facility? And then when it is built, how much more strain is this going to be on a rec committee budget that we don't have money for now?
Okay, keep going.
There are a number of items that are in need of repair at the Parham Ball Field, the fairgrounds. That the $125,000 that was set aside for the new facility and the $150,000 grant would go a long way in fixing not only existing facilities in District 4, but also in all 3 districts. The grant that was applied for the new facility should have been filled out to apply to fix existing facilities that are in desperate need of repair. Although the items that I'm referring to have been in the budget and the minutes of our rec committee a number of times over the past few years. And I do have a list I could read if you'd like to hear that.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Staying in the Gable ends, this is just at the Parham Ball Field, most of it. Staying in the Gable ends at the ticket booth, they've never been done. And that was done 6 years ago. The new Gable ends were put on. The backstop fencing, the fencing around the ball field is in desperate need of repair. Some of the posts are just hanging there by wire. Some of the bars are ready to fall off. The playground fencing. How many people here have seen the playground fencing around that playground? If somebody come and put that fencing up at your place, would you pay for it? I would hope not. And this is a very unsafe fencing. The seating area around the barbecue, the wood's all rotten there, needs to be replaced. The cement work at the pavilion that was built 5-6 years ago, the cement's breaking away on it. The basketball and pickleball court need to be asphalt. The grandstand has been condemned, but I hear that it's supposed to be getting repaired. The palace needs various repairs. A fence along the roadway, they tore the old fencing down. Now cars are just driving through there. A new fence was supposed to go up, but it was never done. And we've even asked to have the track graded, and we can't even get that done. The rec committee wants to have a walking club, and the track we feel is unsafe to walk on. So my questions to council is, was council aware of the fact that there was no money to fix existing facilities?
Okay. First of all, council dealt with the budget that came to us. And if these items were in the budget, then we put them in the budget. Tyson, do you want to speak to any of these repairs that were listed? I know fencing has been worked on, has it not? Sure, sure. Or just speak loudly from there. Oh, that's true.
Madam Mayor, I did have some trouble hearing everything on that list. I tried to write it down as fast as I could. If Andy would like to comment on anything that's inside of anything to do with any buildings or structures or anything like that, feel free to join me up here as that all those tasks are still underneath of the Development Services Department. But as for the outdoor facilities, everything mentioned on the list, I hosted a meeting with the rec committee. Everything on the list has either been, it was either not budgeted for, or it's scheduled work, or it's already been done. So we're doing our best with the budget that we've got. I didn't say there was no budget for that at all. And I would like to speak to the Sharba Lake rink. Is just the 125,000 is it's before my time. It's been put away. It's been put aside by council for the last at least 5 years. Michael might be able to speak to that better, but Public Works is overseeing the outdoor facilities, and we are doing our best with the budget that we've got to work with for all of these little issues like that. The fencing issue, I think Noah would agree that that's already scheduled, and we may have had some issues with contractor and doing it timely, but we are on it, and I believe we've been promised for that to be completed before the Parham Fair, but I can try to expedite that as fast as possible.
Okay, so some of these things are being worked on and are in the budget and being dealt with. Okay.
They are in the budget. I have it right here. One I sent in.
I don't know how the budgets go from the committee to the council rep to the table.
I'm not sure either. I just know that it was in the budget, and also something that was put in the budget starting back in 2016. Make sure everybody can hear me. There's supposed to be $3,000 a year put away for the Titchburn rink.
Michael.
I'm trying to bring that up, but I don't know $3,000 to put aside for the Titchburn rink, but I'm trying to come up with the reserve that we have. And there is money set aside for different things, but my understanding is this comes to staff. We sometimes make decisions, we make recommendations to council approves the budget. I can look at what the dollar amount is, but as I commented already, we all have constraints and we have to operate within it the best we can. That's part of what Lily this report was done. So we prioritize the tasks that need to be completed first.
Right. Okay.
As one proactive response to this delegation or this presentation, I am very open to stopping everything and hosting another meeting early next week to make sure when I delegate some of these tasks to staff, I get onto capital projects, and there's a good reminder to follow up on some of this. I'm open to a meeting. I'm disappointed that it's come to this. I'm disappointed that it's been disregarded all since Public Works has been in charge of outdoor facilities. The improvements we have made at the Parham ball field, or fairgrounds, I should say. We've actually spent a lot of time there, and we've had our contractors have stepped up to the plate, and the facility's looking a lot better than it was.
Okay, Sherry?
I just wanted to thank Bob for his presentation, and I do think I do understand how there is a perception. I know we are all Central Frontenac. I know sometimes we are still seen as 4 separate districts. And I think at one time, I think during the first term of council, we had organized a Central Frontenac Rec Committee, if I'm correct, where all 4 chairs sort of got together and troubleshot, and we tried to make it feel less like 4 separate districts. But I do understand there is also perhaps not always the money in the budget, but I do think there is a feeling amongst some of the rec committees, perhaps that we could have a better system, and not to criticize staff, just to say sometimes things come forward in minutes. We get the rec committee minutes. They mention there are these health and safety concerns. There's the fence, the staining that needs to be done, but we don't necessarily have a good system in place to make sure they're feeling like they're being acknowledged or that their concerns are being heard. And perhaps we could just maybe look at either a meeting or maybe making rec committees and our volunteers, because they do put a lot of sweat equity into our community to offer things to community members. Perhaps we could look at making our volunteers feel a little more like they're being listened to, and that we do have some plan in place that maybe we can't always offer financial support, but maybe we can just be a little more diligent in making them feel like they're being listened to. I think that would help.
Bob, your list, can you give that list to Tyson? Yeah. Okay, good. So we have a copy of it. Brent?
Just a question, and it's relating back to something that Michael had mentioned about how the one project that's talked about with regard to Sharper Lake, that there wasn't a dedicated budget per se, but it would be reserves. Am I right in that?
Yeah, so the Oso Road project was not in the budget, and that's why the report came to council and was approved with $125,000 is sitting in reserves, has been for $25,000 a year for the last 5 years.
Right. So we're talking about a reserve, but
Correct.
That reserve is not fully dedicated to one particular project?
That $125,000 is on the line for Oso Rink / ball field.
But is that 100% of the money in that reserve?
No, it's not. And
I guess my question is, why would we not look at some of these priorities that have been raised to be funded through money in that reserve, which is not dedicated to that particular project?
And through Madam Mayor, Councillor Cameron, I'd say because we do not have a strategic plan for recreation at this moment. Is that fair, Kathy?
That's correct. I also want to mention is that when Bob, giving the copy to it, it'd be good if you send some of that stuff to me directly, because I have management meetings. So I have meetings with the managers, and those are kinds of things. And same with the Recreation Committee minutes. That way, if we've got those, then I can address that with the department heads as to what it is, and then make sure that when it comes time for budget purposes, then Michael has the information. Because I think things are getting astray. Your list that you're mentioning, that's the first I've heard of a lot of those things. And I think that if it comes to me, then I can certainly work with the managers and certainly at budget time with council. In regards to, and I mentioned to Michael, in regards to Sue with the Oso Recreation Committee minute, back in a number of years ago, when there used to be the Sharper Lake Snow Riders Association, when they disbanded, they had given money to the township to be used for a rink in Sharper Lake. So some of that money is sitting in that recreation. So I just wanted to let everybody know that too. So
plus there was fundraising specifically
for that
was put into that reserve. Correct. Tyson?
Couple more comments, Madam Mayor. One to Councillor Cameron's comment. Public Works came to council. I just want to remind council that Public Works did come before that money was pulled from reserve, requested that it be pulled from reserve for that project, and laid out several other options of what it could be used for, with absolutely no bias of where it went to, only presenting the projects that were eligible for applying for that grant and projects that were in the planning phase far enough to move forward with that. Public Works has no bias on where that money is spent. We were only presenting what made sense at the time. It doesn't say anything for the future of where the money's allocated or anything like that. Also, I think something that will come up in the meeting when we meet with the rec committee again, and I think Andy should be there as well for that. Maybe some better timelines on some of the things on the wish list. Staining the canteen is going to not take as high of a priority as, let's say, a fuel spill or a closure of 38 highway because of the surprise Via Rail project and other big capital road projects and stuff like that. So maybe assigning more realistic and better timelines to those items on that list when we meet, because we do appreciate the meetings we have with the rec committee. We fully want to support the rec committee, and I was thinking the relationship was going quite well, and I'm excited to continue working with them.
Yeah, and it does take all the departments, all the volunteers, and everyone to get this work done. And unfortunately, the season is short. By the time we get budgets approved, we're right into the spring, and we're right into all the stuff that needs to be done before the snow flies. So it is a matter of timing, I think, with a lot of these. So you're going to meet with the group and go through that list, see where we can get things done. Now, I think the question of moving the 125,000, this council has already committed that to the Charlotte Lake rink. And I don't think that decision, unless 2/3 of the majority want to relook at that would happen. Brent?
Again, I'd like to go back to the fact that that money is not the entirety of the reserve. And, you know, and we talk about, and Michael brings up a lot, and I think rightfully so, asset management plan in terms of the viability of our facilities. So if there is some opportunity to take funds not specifically dedicated to that project, I know the council voted to, and I respect that vote, but it's not all the money in that. And we have a lot of pressing issues. And again, asset management, it fits with us. We have to have facilities that are safe and accessible and are going to be ready for the long term. So if there is some portion of the money not earmarked for that particular project in that reserve, that we might be able to look at projects, not just for District 4, but areas where, quite frankly, there's some badly needed repairs. I think we should strongly consider that.
Yeah, and we are working on the Arden rink right now, and some of that is coming from reserves, I believe, Michael?
I believe there's a little bit, yes.
Yeah. Tyson, do you want to let Rick sit in your spot? He's had his hand up twice. Have a chair, Rick. Push that button on your right.
I don't know where to start on this because I was really only concerned to see Parham Ball Field. I'm not a member of the District 4. I'm not a district of any of the districts. And I just didn't like the idea of the ball field and the rink becoming in disarray because they are the most successful sports, recreational facilities you actually have your council. They've been going on for years and they're not talking huge amounts of money. We're just talking to maintain it. Just make it usable for everybody else. My children have just moved home, live across from the rink. Guess what? It's good possibility there's not going to be any rink there. So what I started out with here, I said Parham Ball Field and Titchburn Rink and the other existing facilities, are they being forgotten? The recreational value of them. I don't want it to become a old recreation versus new recreation. I can't see why we can't have both. All we need is enough to maintain. They're not looking to, anyhow. And I haven't been talking to Bob. We just came here at the same time. Do we have to sacrifice one? We do not want to turn this into a battle of where things locate and where not. We need to be united township, as Shirley said. We cannot, I'd like council to see the value in those facilities. Operating for probably close to 100 years. The Parham Ball Field, the longest existing facilities in this township. Not historical value, but existing. The rinks have not always run. That rink has not always run every year, but the years has been successful. It was a part of my mom and dad's home. They tried to give it to the township on a lease.
I wish we had have taken it.
No, they did take it. They did take it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And they did not register it, I believe. Had they registered or let us know, that might have changed in mom's sale of the house, because that's how strong my dad felt about that rink.
For sure.
The Parham Ball Field, it's been a part of the ball field. It is, they talk about the Parham or Charlotte Lake rink and generating money from the snow riders. They've tried rinks there before and they failed. They tried to put them on the ball field. They could not hold water because they couldn't get frost. The Pitchburn rink is a natural basin for water. You can have ice the 1st of December and skate to the end of March if the season's a thing. Where I know you're trying to build something different, but the other one didn't succeed. And I don't want to and I worked at the Market Square and I know what it costs to operate it. I know the difficulties it can be keeping it maintained. I don't know whether you have a roof or anything planned, but they're not easy. You are going to end up with a 3-month season or less, and it's going to cost you. And we have a rink here that would cost you nothing. Nothing is compared to $125,000 and succeed. The same with the ball field. We have one ball field in the area that I think is like Tyson says, it's in great shape. It's as good, but it is the ball field for Central Frontenac right now.
And Parham's always had strong ball teams.
And people don't come to Charlotte Lake because a lot of these teams are further south. The numbers are getting so small that we have to go south. We don't want any more people to go south. We want them to come to our area. And what you're doing is, well, I can drive to Kingston, which is 35 minutes. I can go to 15 minutes. We don't want to change.
I can assure you that we do care about the rink and the ball field, and we have been working to get the property at the rink site. It's just a matter of change of ownership and what it's going to take to get that done.
Okay. So I only have one other comment.
Okay.
And it's by squeezing the existing facilities and not giving them any money, it certainly makes, and this is going to sound bitter, and it's not, because I want the rink to succeed if it's here. But by squeezing existing facilities makes the old ones more likely to fail because there is no money for them. And there will not be money after this happens. It could be very well that you know what the North Frontenac Arena or Central Frontenac or Frontenac Arena costs? You can't give up the good to try to get better. You have to keep the good and then get better. You can't sacrifice it first.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you both.
Bob,
any questions or comments? Nikki?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to follow up on Sherry's comment about developing resurrecting the Central Frontenac Rec Committee and maybe include Tyson in it as well. If he's taking over those facilities, and Andy, if needed, if they should be involved in it, not just a member of council and the rec committee, like the people that are going to be overseeing this and being part of the budgeting and deciding, then maybe they should be a part of it too. And I think that it would alleviate a bit of Bob's concerns if he knew that the whole township would work together and be heard together.
I think if the chairs of the rec committees were prepared to do that, it would work. And I know that Bob and Leslie and Wanda and Corey in Mountain Grove went together and got a grant to get all kinds of equipment. But as far as meeting together, Bill, I think you chaired that committee. It was hard to get folks out and keep people working together as one instead of 4 separate rec committees. Bill, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, I've been around the table a long time, and I want you to know, everyone to know, that I support all kinds of recreation activities throughout the township. And I've always considered the township to be 1, not 4. And it was a battle, because I was the first mayor, that we had to overcome, because there were a lot of what should I say, baggage in the way of looking at this is ours, not yours, sort of thing. And we did set up the Central Rec Committee for the very purpose of trying to overcome some of the obstacles that were laying in front of us in regard to breaking down those fences. And we were really quite successful in getting a very large grant to supply equipment, and Bob was part of this, and so were the other chairs, of which were distributed throughout the whole township in regard to support the programs that were ongoing. But some of the issues that I see in regard to, it's not a matter of us looking at presenting any more to one area than the other. What we have to do is support what's already there, keep it going, but we've run into a few problems in regard to land ownership, in regard, as you're really quite aware, in regard to the Titchburn rink. And there were some suggestions of moving that to the Parham ball field, which there was a lot of opposition to, as I understand. But we did have an issue in regard, when we had the Central Frontenac Recreation Committee, of actually getting participation with all 4 areas. That was an issue, and I'm hoping that and then along came COVID, of course, and that put a wrench in a lot of works. But I would hope that in the future we could work together, because what we're doing is, by having a larger unit, we have access to perhaps provincial money that would help us with some of these projects. But I don't think we can do it on an individual basis. We have to do it as one. And I'm looking forward to doing that. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Rick, you came back because you thought of something.
I did, only because Sherry's idea of the 4 districts meeting together, I thought is great. And I'm not here, but the reality is, if the 4 districts had been together, would the money been allotted to Oso alone? Or Oso as District 1 or District whatever? I think all those other people would have been taking care of a little bit of their own interest. Like, I know that Nikki, sorry, Mr. Cameron, everybody, it takes care of their constituents as best they can. That's how they get here. And I don't know, my last one is, I know that the rink is not owned by, but the reality is what they're talking, I don't want to sound bitter or not bitter, biased to the rink, but it's a good investment. Whatever you make it, whatever you put into that rink, you will get back more. What you put into a new one right now, it's going to take a while. And what happens? Well, this one's getting built. This is not ready to go tomorrow, is it? Or
You're talking about Titchburn, or
no, the new one?
Oh no, it's in the process, right? It's getting started
next year.
Excavation's supposed to start Friday.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah. Okay.
But that doesn't mean that Titchburn rink isn't going to happen because of that.
It's not going to happen this year unless there's money.
Well, but it can happen if we can get the land straightened out, Rick. But that's the issue. And Bob knows we've been working on that.
Yeah.
So and again, we can only do what we can do to buy property from someone. Bob?
So while we're on the Titchburn rink, where are we with the Titchburn rink?
Kathy.
We have to do some, because all those, the boards and everything, we have the Conservation Authority out to look at it, because the boards are sinking, the hydro poles are sinking, and what we need to do. So we've had them already out there So we're trying to compile some figures and numbers as to what it would cost council to do all the work that needs to be done there. And what it would cost if we decided to move it, say to Parham, for instance. So that's what staff is doing with all those numbers. So we will be getting those numbers back, because there also was the option we had approached the landowner as to whether to purchase it. They're not sure if they're going to want us to, they don't know if they want to sell it to us. And they weren't unsure about even going back into a lease. So we're just sort of waiting for their decision as well.
So things have been happening, but there's no decision of which way we're going to go yet.
So I'm going to be a little confused here, I guess, because I was talking to the landowner a couple of weeks ago, and he said he's waiting on the township to get back to him because he gave the township an offer for the land.
No. We have nothing in writing at this point.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so more work will be done on that, but we are trying to do what we can to see about the Titchburn rink, if it's going to be viable to be put back there, or the other option is to possibly move it to the fairgrounds and figure out where we can put it there so that we can have a rink in that district. So you haven't been forgotten. It's just unfortunate that property sold and we didn't get a chance to get a clear title at the time.
The thing is, if you move it to Parham, it won't be the Titchburn rink.
It'll be a Parham Titchburn rink.
It'll be Central Frontenac, District 1, District 4.
Okay.
Central Frontenac, not Parham Titchburn, and that's what it should be.
No, if we move the Titchburn rink to Parham, it will be a Central Frontenac rink. You don't think it'll be used if it goes to Parham?
One of the things, and this is one of the things that makes it success, is it holds water all the time. It's got its own source of water. It's in, it's dammed, it goes out. It's perfect. It's the perfect spot for an outdoor rink. The city of Kingston can't operate outdoor rinks anymore because the winters are too short. There's no base for water. And I know I'm taking too much time.
Right. Okay, we're going to need to move on. All right, thank you for coming. And I have a motion moved by Brent Cameron, seconded by Victor Hayes. The council received the presentation from Bob Teal and Rick Goodfellow regarding the upkeep of current facilities for information. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Next, we have Leslie Merrigan on behalf of the Country Music Association of Ontario and the Barbecue at the Beach. And because she's my daughter and it's not a pecuniary interest, I will just sit and listen and not vote. Push the button on the right.
Hello, everybody. I was hoping to have some company with me, but unfortunately, everyone on the committee was unavailable. So basically what we're asking for is closure of 38 Highway on August the 20th from 3 o'clock until the clear out, I'm assuming around midnight. To unnecessary traffic, local traffic, of course, would be able to pass. We would have people letting people in and out with the thoughts of just keeping traffic to a low roar for safety purposes, and just so that we can control the area a little bit. It is going to be a licensed event. The application has gone forward to AGCO as of yesterday. My role in this group is sort of as a networking agent to get things moving. So I'm sort of in charge of logistics, which is why I'm presenting. In your packages, I believe there was some maps put forward as to what is planned for the layout. We are asking council as well to close the beach to the public from 3 p.m. until the end of the event. So basically, we don't want to close to the public because it is a Saturday on an August weekend. So we are realistic in that there's going to be families there. During setup, which is planned to start around noon, We don't intend to interrupt anybody's time at the beach. Probably around the time that gates are open, which is going to be 7 p.m. Anyone who is still on the beach, we're assuming we're going to put up some notifications, and with your help, we're going to notify as many people as possible that the intention is that the beach will be closed to the public. But of course, there may be people who are unaware and who are still there, and we would work around that. We would either discuss it with people there, approach them and explain what's happening. And for the most part, people are pretty good when you're doing an event of this nature. They'll either buy a ticket or they'll just go home. And because it's an evening event, the usage of the beach at that point is starting to get dark. So I don't anticipate there'll be any children that would, still be in the water. So we don't anticipate any problems as far as pushback from anybody using the beach.
Do you want me to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for clarification, in your opening paragraph, you said closure of Road 38. And I think what you meant to say was Medical Center Road from 38.
You're right,
Okay,
Victor. That's exactly what I meant to say. Yeah, so basically what we're going to do is I had a meeting with staff and we talked about the 38 at the Medical Center Road, having it barricaded with some really good signage, just indicating prior to traffic coming in so that we don't have bottlenecking at that point. And again, it will be open to local traffic, of course. But we'll also be leaving the trail open. So walkers and we don't anticipate, again, a lot of traffic that way. And there will be in that stretch between the stop signs in behind the band shell, we will have a person at either end, allowing traffic to go in and out. Just for safety purposes, with people walking across that street to their cars, we just want to maintain as much control over movement as we can. And slowing things down a little bit, for sure.
I just wanted to mention, yes, to council that, Leslie, as well as Verl from the CMA Association of Ontario did meet with, there was the fire chief, public works manager, the treasurer, myself, Marty from the OPP. So all that logistics has been done and to coordinate this and about the closure of the road. And I know that Marty prepared, because we talked about keeping part of it open, but Marty, the OPP, he thought we're better to close it for that period of time.
And because we spoke to Marty, the other thing that we are going to do is put 2 people at the top of Matthew Street at Elizabeth as well, just so that section of road doesn't get too congested. We don't intend to stop people there, but just so that people are aware and they don't head down the hill with nowhere really to go, because they can't drive on Thompson Cut and they're going to be limited to driving behind that stage. So it's just safer to have a couple of bodies there as well. So logistically on the beach itself, the gates are going to be at either end of the beach. So there will be 6-foot fencing around the entire property. As per the AGCO requirements, whenever you have an SOP, you need to have control over entry. So the only part that will be open are the 2 gates on either end.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Leslie, I assume that you'll have some ambulance attendants there also on site along with the fire and that sort of thing.
So when I spoke to the fire chief and the sergeant from the OPP, we did discuss first aid. There is a first aid station with a couple of people who are first aid certified. We've also hired security guards, 2 of them, both of which are going to have EMT training, and they are coming from CMAOs. So Verl's looking after that hire. They didn't seem it necessary to have an ambulance on site, nor did they see that it was necessary unless the AGCO recommended to have a duty police officer. So that's why we didn't pursue that. It was definitely, we would have had they recommended that, but it wasn't recommended at that point. I think partly because this event isn't a lot different than Canada Day. The only difference is the alcohol piece. And I was involved also with the Day of the Pig, where we had an AGCO permit, we had fencing, and there was no issues. So So I'm fairly confident, as are my team, that we don't anticipate any issues with first aid, but we're prepared if there are any.
Okay. I just want to follow up in regard to, was there any plans in which to provide alternate transportation to the site?
So because we have done events like this in the past, and we have tried to do, we've tried to say, okay, well, let's park at Oso Fire Hall in the parking lot in front of the garage, and then we would shuttle bus in. You either have to do a cost or you have to take the risk. So then we got another new liability because we have that. Right. Plus we have to charge people extra. Plus there's a chance that nobody's going to use it because they have to rely on somebody else. Now, most of you have come to an event at Charlotte Lake Beach in the past where we've had upwards of 800 people. Yes, it's chaotic. Yes, there's a lot of action going on. The difference is that we're actually going to have traffic people who are going to try to direct traffic. Where Canada Day, we just kind of go.
And we all make it, and we all make it out alive.
And we all make it out alive for the most part. I don't know that there's been any incidences, so I'm pretty.
Finished.
Oh, sorry.
Finish, if I may, Leslie, I assume that we're going to be advertising the closure of the road in the paper so that people get a heads up.
That's why I'm hoping once the resolutions pass, we are sitting on some signage right now, just waiting for the go. So we didn't want to put the horse before the cart. So we don't want to start that messaging until it's 100%.
Fine.
Okay. You're done. Chris wants to say something. Okay, Brent.
I mean, it sounds exciting, Leslie. I was just wondering, you had mentioned 800. I guess my question is really just curiosity. How many people do you expect to get?
So we're anticipating, we're hoping for 850. There's 850 tickets available. We're hoping for 500. It is a new event, and new events sometimes do take a little bit of a kick to get going. Tickets have been available online now for about 3 weeks. We have a meeting on the 15th, and I'll know better then where we are at for sales. I'm really unsure on that part. My part has been so much more about logistics that sales is really outside my ballywag at this point. So I'm hoping that they're doing okay. We are hoping that this does become something we can do annually, with the end goal being Sam Mirage from Seas and Company has been working with the CMAOs for a really long time. And the CMAOs are looking for a place to have a Hall of Fame in Ontario. And there's a good possibility that it could possibly land here in Central Frontenac. So we're hoping that this event might lead to some sort of future home of the Hall of Fame of country music in Ontario.
So you're saying we all need to buy tickets?
I'm saying I would really appreciate it if you did.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I'll read. Okay, Victor?
Yeah, I'm sure that you probably have already thought about this, but the farmers market, you contacted them?
Yes, so we've thought, so let me go back a little bit because I think it's important because I am a local girl. So I did think about things that perhaps the rest of the members of the group did not. One of the things that happened with this group is when we got together, we were talking about weekends. During that, they had already come to the table with August the 20th because Havelock was canceled. That was the purpose. That's the reason they picked that weekend, is because that huge festival in Havelock was canceled, and they thought, okay, there's an opportunity for us to take that genre of people who love that music and give them another avenue. I said, it's also the weekend of the Parham Fair. So originally the plan was that this event was going to start at noon, and it was going to go until midnight. And we sort of all talked about the ramifications of that. And then we decided that it needed to be an evening event. The last thing that this group wants to do is to feel there's any competition amongst people, because we want this to be something that everybody can enjoy and something that can happen annually, whether it's this weekend or another weekend. So that is really important for me. And it's important for you to know too, is that that was something that was considered, and we modified things to make it to make it so. And I think that's important.
Here we are, a little town with nothing to do, and then we have so much to do all in the same weekend.
I know.
All right, I'm going to read a motion, and then if there's further questions or comments. Oh, okay.
Lastly, the only thing that I can see that could be a problem here, one of the things I can see, is the logistics of parking. Because if you're talking 800 and some people, you're talking roughly probably 300 cars or 250 cars minimum. Just looking at this area, just wondering where you think you're going to park them, because you're probably going to use the medical center parking lot. You may use some of the trail there. That seems like you're only going to be able to accommodate a few. Where are you guys going to park the rest of this?
So one of the responsibilities of the CMAOs is to get signage together. Viral Mobs, who is the executive director of that organization, and I are working really closely on making some signage. We are not going to park in the medical center blocking the helipad. We are not going to park down by the dentist office because for safety purposes, we're barricading that off. We are going to offer people parking in front of the municipal building on that parking lot. We're going to offer them the parking along 38 Highway. And we're going to, because it's an evening event as well, within the village, there'll be some parking. And parking is going to be an issue even if we have to bus them in. Because there are always going to be people who are going to say, yeah, there's busing, but I want to get close. So I'm going to park on Matthew Street, or I'm going to park on. So because we are recognizing that as an issue, that's part of the reason. And when I spoke to staff, that we are going to put bodies out there to direct traffic, and also who are going to have parking information. The high school could be a parking spot. The ball field could be a parking spot. It's really not that far to walk. So we are going to make people aware who are not aware where those possibilities are. And the CMAOs are also going to tag it onto the website for where you go to buy tickets of an overall aerial view of Charlotte Lake and where parking could possibly be.
And on Canada Day, it's amazing the numbers, and they find places to park.
If I'm going to be 100% honest, it actually kind of makes me nervous that we have people, because we never usually have people and it works out really well. So now we have people and I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm really going to keep my fingers crossed that that's a good idea.
Sherry?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that was just my comment as well. It always works on Canada Day. I don't think we've ever had an issue, and you're going an extra step and providing people. So I don't think it'll be an issue.
And I don't know if you know, I've done some really big events in this area in Parham, Charlotte Lake, and all over the place. So there's probably not a base that I haven't covered, because I'm the first one that's going to get called if things don't go right. So I've really tried hard to make sure that we've covered all of our bases, that I've worked with staff to make sure that from a safety point of view, we're doing all the right things. We've got Tyson on board helping with some, with some of the things that I'm going to need in order to make it happen, and making sure that I have volunteers that are capable and knowledgeable of the area, especially so that when people who aren't from here are going to get maximized this, coming to the area. Because we anticipate too that the event starts at 7, but if I'm coming from Ottawa, I'm coming at noon. So there are going to be people on the beach. They hopefully are going to, explore a little bit of Central Frontenac and check out the place that they're coming to. So that's our hope, is that we're going to bring people here who have never been here before.
Yeah. And could you give me where we can get the tickets so we can get that out to
So
council?
the tickets you can go to the CMAO website, go under events, and there's a little section that says membership and buy tickets. It's kind of hard to find. So they're also available locally. You can get them at Gray's, at Seeds, at Seed to Sausage.
I think at the Cardinal Cafe.
And at the Cardinal Cafe. So
Okay.
yeah, they're available locally as well.
Okay,
So
Philip.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say I was really excited when I see the advertising start for this event, and I'm glad you commented the Parham Fair and it was in your consideration, because that was the next thing after I seen the advertising was.
Well, and to be honest with you, when we started talking about it right out of the gates, I was like, this is fantastic. This is exactly what we need. This can be great. And then I went, nope, hang on. So everyone on the committee knows that just, we had to modify that. I mean, to have an event from 12 on, we knew that wasn't going to work. So that's why it was modified. Now, that's not to say next year, when we decide to do this again and we pick a different weekend, we could have something that's all day. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, and that's where you have CMAOs that have, you know, they have their agenda and they're, you know, they're looking at their dates and then coming into a village like ours where we're small. So we need to make sure we're not stepping on people's toes. So that was important for all of us.
Okay, now I'm going to read the motion. And the motion is moved by Victor Hayes and seconded by Nikki Gowdy. That council received the presentation from Leslie Merrigan on behalf of the Country Music Association of Ontario regarding the barbecue bash event at the Oso Beach. And that council authorized the temporary closure of the section of Medical Center Road from Road 38 intersection to Matthew Street intersection to vehicular traffic starting at 3 p.m. on August the 20th, 2022 until 12 a.m. August 21st, 2022. Local traffic and KMP trail users will be allowed access. And that council authorized the entire beach property be closed to the public starting at 3 p.m. until the end of the day to allow for setup and management of the event. And that council support the Country Music Association of Ontario's request to have a beer tent at the Oso Beach on August 20th, 2022, and declares the barbecue bash as an event of municipal significance. And further, that the CAO clerk be authorized to sign a letter in support or other documentation that may be required from Alcohol Gaming Commission Ontario. Whew, that's a mouthful. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried.
And Leslie, I did print off the copy of the letter that they have sent off to the ACGO. So I've got that as well.
Okay. Thank you. Now go home and cook supper.
She wants dinner when you get home.
Yeah. We're moving on to correspondence. Moved by Brent Cameron, seconded by Victor Hayes. The council receive and file the following correspondence, and it's 1 to 13. All those in favor? Carried. We're going to need a break here shortly, guys. We're almost there. Okay, moved by Victor Hayes, seconded by Brent Cameron, that bylaw 2024, being a bylaw to restrict the common law access over a highway, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 9th day of August, 2022.
That's the bylaw to be deferred.
Yeah, somebody needs to move a deferral, right?
Yes. Just in here. It's deferred here.
Okay.
I'll check it off.
I'll just defer it at the bottom.
Because it's got deferral.
Okay, all right, deferred. That motion is deferred.
And you can put on until deferred
to September 13th meeting.
Yes.
All right, that's deferred. I guess you better vote on that. All those in favor of deferring? Motion's carried to defer. All right. Moved by Brent Cameron, seconded by Victor Hayes, that council support the Parham Fair Board's request to have a beer tent.
No, this is the Parham Fair Board's beer tent.
Yeah.
But you need to do notice of motions first.
To have a beer tent. Oh, sorry.
Notice of motions and giving notice of motion. There are none anyway, Madam Mayor.
No notice of motion, no giving of notices. All right. Sorry, I just went with what I have in front of me instead of the agenda. All right, now I have a motion moved by Brent Cameron, seconded by Victor Hayes, that council support the Parham Fair Board's request to have a beer tent at the Parham Fairgrounds on August the 20th, 2022, and declares the Parham Fair as an event of municipal significance. And further, that the CAO clerk be authorized to sign a letter in support or other documentation that may be required from Alcohol Gaming Commission Ontario. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Beer tents all over the place. Okay. Now let's have at least a 5-minute break. And then when we come back, we're going into closed session.